Data management shouldn't be a headache. It should be your fuel. Welcome to the Data Edge. I'm Erwin de Werd and I'm joined by Stephanie Wiechers to break down the complexities of data quality into concrete actionable steps. We're moving beyond just another tool to show you how to build systems that a team can actually use and trust. If you're ready to turn your technical data into strategic power, you're in the right place. Welcome, Stephanie, in today's episode.
Thank you, Erwin. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so let's talk about the procurement side of things in data management. I know recently you had an interesting interview with a procurement professional. So I think it can be interesting to share some of the insights that you got from this discussion about it.
Yeah, so I had a really interesting conversation with a lady who has done procurement and has been head of procurement for a number of really big enterprises. The biggest one, like multiple billions in revenue annually. So she has been overseeing a lot of procurement. And I came to her with a simple question, which usually has the most complex and most elaborate conversations you can have about it, which basically was, okay, well, we have our, well, it's like, okay, Sophie, we have our platform and it does data quality, and we are working with quite a broad range of clients in like different sizes, right? Some of them maybe only have like 40 employees and some of them do billions in revenue. And we are seeing a number of things, but would you share with me your experience from being the head of procurement for such a big enterprise, how that actually links to your pain points and how you go about these things?
Okay, yeah, so I'm curious, so what she see as the main pain points in procurement?
Yeah, she talked a lot about category management, and in procurement, because you buy so many things, there are basically two directions you can take. And we see that a manufacturer that has a very recurring and predictable stream has a completely different way to approach this and a completely different problem around category management than a company who works more project-based.
Okay. So maybe quickly you can then explain what you mean by category management.
Yeah. So we'll take two examples. We'll take the example of a car manufacturer. And so now, let's say I'm going to produce 20,000 Tesla Model Ys. So for every car, I need a specific subset of components, right? Like I need one engine, I need 4 wheels, maybe a spare wheel, so that's 5. I need all the aluminum for the outside and the plating. I need a radio. And so every car has just these set components. And so in total, from everything that I will be buying, let's say this year, but also maybe in the next couple of years, I have a pretty good idea of how much do I need. And I have a lot of foresight because I have a planning. And I'm just going to manufacture a number of cars that aligns to a combination of what is the factory output, how much can we sell, right? Because if no one's buying the car, at some point, if Elon Musk gets cancelled again, we'll have to stop producing more Teslas. The other side here is when we work more project-based. And that is where it becomes, let's say, interesting. And why do I say interesting? It's because it's not so predictable. So instead of manufacturing these 20,000 Tesla Model Ys, now what we're going to do is, if we're working in maintenance, is like all of our clients, they have their pumps and they have their HVAC systems, and they have like maybe just a gigantic, like a whole production line. And it's not as straightforward, like what's going to break when and which maintenance are we going to do when. And of course, there is predictability in it, right? You'll have a maintenance planning, and for that maintenance planning, there is a number of items that you'll buy, and there's like kind of a one, maybe general, but there's a lot of fluctuations around that. And now, as our year progresses, we find out that actually, you know, there's been a specific bump or a MEA bump, and all of them have like a very sensitive component. So we've had to buy this specific component, and it's creating shortages in the market. And so what I mean by category management is that when we move this to scale, so we are now servicing many different items, many different machines, is that we want to know not on the most granular level, so not on the invoice line item description where there can be a lot of ambiguity around what the client says, but also not on the most macro level what we're buying. We want to be somewhere between that, such that we can say we bought 576 aluminum beams this year, and we bought 10,323 M5 bolts in this specific steel composition last year. And then we want to not only be able to know what did we buy there, but also where did we buy it.
Of course. Okay, so she pointed out this category management, I got it. It's for projects, of course, there's more flexibility, variance. It's not so predictable, so more difficult actually to bring these items in the correct category. Is that right? So it's more a messy situation if you not manage it well. And what especially did she bring forward on this topic? Did you mention any numbers or where she see a lot of saving potential or efficiency potential?
Yeah. Well, one thing that she mentioned, which really stuck with me, is she said every procurement director at her level will be aware that data quality is a big issue. And so whenever you want to do any savings in procurement, whenever you want to make improvements, the data quality is really the foundational bit. That's where it's at. Doesn't mean...
Let's stop there for a moment. So is that then related to a certain size of company, or when does this come into effect, do you think?
In the end, yes, it is related to a certain size of company, but only to how much of an extent, like how much of an impact this is going to have. To the simple example that if let's say we start a construction firm together, like very small scale, and so maybe we do like one sub-service, right? Let's say we do something like we're gonna paint houses. So we have to buy paint and brushes and, well, whatever comes with that, and we'll rent scaffolding. So now, maybe just one of us buys it, that would make sense. And even if like both of us sometimes buy something, we have very clear communication because it's just the two of us and we're just doing this. We're on the ground, we see each other every day. So what we buy isn't necessarily a very big problem. And if we are able to buy paint cheaper, that's good for us, and we can buy an extra cup of coffee. It's not going to save us millions, right? So now we scale this. And instead of having one type of service and just two people on the ground who do it, we have very big teams and we have lots of different divisions, and different people are buying at different locations, at different places, and for different projects.
That's another, of course, element that come into place then.
Yeah.
That you have these different departments and they're not really cooperating as good as you wish that they will cooperate, and so on and so forth. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, the like smallest scale where it would become relevant is when you have two buyers, and so not two buyers who do some buying, but like two dedicated buyers who, well, from that moment on, there is some room to...
Yeah. So, but does it relate really to the number of buyers? So I'm thinking about, for instance, what about trading companies? They buy a lot in large volumes and they sell it. So that's a really high throughput in buying and selling, right? So the company might not be that large, but the quantities what they buy is large.
True. Yeah. Well, I would say where this becomes really interesting is when you don't know what you buy specifically. And that seems like a very strange thing to say. Like, why would you not know what you buy?
Well, depending on what is asked, right? So if you cannot predict the demand, then yeah, then you don't know upfront what you should buy.
Yeah, yeah. And so as soon as someone else needs to work with this information of what has been bought, so they haven't done the purchase themselves, they are not the ones who went to the store, they're also not the ones who talked to the supplier, they're not the ones who negotiated the contracts, they're not the ones involved in the project, but they do need to make the analysis of what's happening here. That's where it becomes really, really interesting. And that's when this data quality and category management becomes relevant.
Okay, so we now had quite a deep dive into the category management part of things. Can you mention some other factor that was part of your discussion with her?
Yeah. Yeah. What she mentioned is data is a problem that lives everywhere, but these improvements that you can possibly make, that's much more of a personal decision. And we see that in businesses like across the spectrum. Different people have a different willingness to make a change. And there's this curve, and you might know it's the early adapter curve. So when the new iPhone comes out, or when you can buy trainers with lights in them, but so also when there's this big innovation called AI, who are the people that are the first to start using it? And so they try it really before anyone else is doing it.
The
And then
innovators.
the innovators, exactly. That goes through a curve, and then in the middle of that curve is, most people are there. They're not the first ones to try out something new. And so they will look at their competitors, and then, when one of the competitors has a big success and they're making big cost savings, they're like, shit, I'm missing out. I want to be in on that. And so at that point, that innovator has this huge head start, and they are already making big cost savings, they're making the deals. But most people will be in that middle part of the curve.
Sure.
Yeah, and then there will always be, there's always be, in Dutch we say, watch the cat out of the tree.
Ah, okay, yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, recently I had discussion with one of my business contacts. He works in pharma. And they really like to take steps. He say, Erwin, listen, I'm a big fan of AI, but for us it's so difficult because we have all the eyes on us. So everything that we do, people jump on us and have critique if we make one mistake. So they're very careful by doing anything in this direction because it's sensitive, right? So that's really an issue actually, if you think about it, because these companies they have an interest, and at the same point they just must be very careful by making the next step. So that's why you just say you're saying the cat is really looking from the tree before they do anything wrong, because that can cause a lot of issues. And at the same time, of course, they can become, let's say, late to the party because of
Yeah,
that
I
strategy.
really hope there's some other Dutchies who find this as funny as we find it. There's cats in the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. There is, and that must be a big thing around, okay, are we going to be the first to the party? Because there is a piece of risk aversion there. What
But
I
is
would
there
say,
is there really so much risk, or is it more the fear that is there that people don't know? It's just that they don't have the knowledge about it. So
a
can you
lot.
very shortly, we cannot, we don't have time to detail this very much, but I'm curious, is it really fair to be afraid for that, or is it just unknown?
Yeah, the real risk is actually in what if we don't change? We can see how fast everything around AI and technology is evolving nowadays. Like, imagine that however many years ago you were like, nah, I don't think the internet is going to take off. And you're not like having a website. I mean, and you refuse to use computers like so many years ago. Like, we can all see right now that that would just be unheard of. That's a ridiculous decision. You can't run, I mean, like 99% of today's businesses you can't run without a computer. Like, even if it was to do your administration or like to file your
Yeah,
taxes.
exactly. Yeah.
So it's not really a question of like, are we going to adopt AI? It's more of a question, when are we going to adopt AI? And
Yeah.
what like,
Well, the speed changed drastically because if you think about this curve, I know this curve, like from the innovators, majority, late majority, and so on. But in the past, the time was longer across these different sections. If you see now what happens with new companies, but also new emerging technologies, like what happens in the AI world, it's happening much, much faster.
yeah,
And that's a challenge also, of course, for I think bigger companies that have more, let's say, bureaucratic structures to make these changes. So change management is an important part of that. So they see probably the importance of the data quality and they want to do something about it. And the other thing is then that the market force really shows that you must move, otherwise you can be too late.
yeah, for sure. Working with AI is just like any other innovation and any other step you take. It's not going to be something where you're like, okay, we've never done this before and we're rolling out this huge project without any knowledge on how to do it and it's going to go right straight away. What makes much more sense is we start a number of small projects, we identify the value that it can bring within our business, we do a number of smaller pilots, and then from there it's much easier to know, oh, wait a second, like how do we actually interact with this new technology, and what do we need for it, what do we want with it, what are our strengths and how can we play to them, and then from there you start to scale and grow.
So small
And so,
steps, right?
yeah, so for all of those, like let's say you would be hesitant today and you'd be like, I don't know about this. I would be like, well, maybe, maybe don't take on $100,000 project straight away. Just try some pilots and then like see what they bring you and identify the value, learn from them.
Yeah, that sounds really good. And okay, I think that's really a nice ending for this episode. So what you're saying is, just have the proof of concept, learn from it, experience it before making the next steps. And yeah, that's an interesting thing. Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing the insights from your conversations in the procurement area. We're looking forward to have much more of them. So I would say thank you and thank you to the listeners for following us and stay tuned for the next episodes coming up with more interesting parts about procurement and data and all these things what is related to it.
Amazing. Thank you. And like very excited to be here again today and excited to have everyone here. So
Definitely,
thank you.
yeah. All right, so see you next time.
See you next time.